fate factor. Do you hear that noise, folks? Can you hear it? You're wondering why I wasn't sitting in front of the camera. You can argue all you want about the fact that you have free will, but I'll tell you what happened to me this morning. I was sitting here just perfectly ready to start shooting this video, and the moment we counted 1, 2, bang, we started hearing workmen sawing through lumber, hammering the hulls of unbuilt ships in the background here. And you would you believe that here? Look at this quiet environment. All of a sudden you have an industrial complex plopped straight in the middle of this recording session, which was, I might add, going to be about relationships today. I started off the video earlier saying that yeah, it's a dirty 12-letter word. Not in a bad sense dirty, because so many people have so much trouble with this word. Without exception, everyone that comes to me has some issues surrounding relationships. And the weird thing to me is that if you're not in a relationship, you're desperately seeking the astrologer to ask him, when am I going to be in a relationship, Dadhichi? If you're already in a relationship, it's either, how the hell can I get out of this relationship, Dadhichi? It's killing me. And between those two extremes, you just have, you know, I would call them the silent majority. You know, I don't know who said it, but it seems to relate to this very, very aptly. The majority of men lead lives of quiet desperation. And that's what I feel with relationships generally. People are struggling. I think I'll get my producer to take the camera now, straight over here, and get a nice angle shot while I'm talking to you about all this stuff. Sorry to interrupt the discussion, but we need to look at why we have these extremes in relationships, why the vast majority, and that's a statistic, not just me saying that, why that is the case, and why there seems to be an escalation of this dissatisfaction in relationships. So astrology has its own answers. I mean, that's to one side. The other side is just the practical consideration and common sense that I've got to tell you I find conspicuously lacking in most of the people that come to me. And I don't say that in an egotistical way. I've got to tell you, I put myself in the category of the people that, you know, were leading lives of quiet desperation for a long time. And that happens to some of us. But the difference between that other extreme of people who stay in those relationships till death do us part, and those of us who, you know, against all challenges of, you know, the unknown, take the step, as I did a few years ago myself, to explore life away from the shadow of this convention or this institution called marriage. And simply because we feel we need to be in a relationship, either for the other person, for what, you know, convention or society or culture deems to be acceptable. This acceptable or not acceptable is very much a product of the culture that we're in, the preconditioning. And that's fed to us via our parents, via our educational systems, via media, via the whole structure of this societal framework that we're born into. So that sounded pretty heavy, I guess, but really astrology has some very broad brushstrokes about, you know, what to look for when you first meet a person. And the first thing I say to women, and men too, is that don't rush into it, just take your time. You need to get to know a person, and you've heard that before, but what happens is that the primal urges, the hormones start speaking, and therefore impulse becomes a far more preferable approach than cautious evaluation, I'd call it. So you need to evaluate. It's just, I mean, you wouldn't go out and buy a house or a car without really evaluating it. And you know, this is a lifelong investment. Marriage or long-term relationship is a lifelong investment, and you want to make sure you're going to get return on that investment. So thousands of years ago, the astrologers talked about methodologies for understanding which group of people would get on with which other group of people. And they referred that to the 12 signs of the horoscope. We had 12 signs of the zodiac. According to astrology, the time you're born, the star sign you're born in, has certain affinity with other star signs. Now primarily that's based upon the element that your star sign is. So we have the elements of fire, earth, air and water. And in some systems there's an additional element called akasha or space. That's a whole other story. But these four elements that we're looking at have an affinity with star signs of the same element. So if we're looking at the fire, what we call the fire trine, it's a triangle. We have Aries, Leo and Sagittarius. These are the three star signs of what we call the fire trine. Then we have the earth trine, Taurus, Virgo and Capricorn. The air trine, which are the signs of Gemini, Libra and Aquarius. And then we have the water trine, which is Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces. So as a very broad axiom, the star signs that are of the same element usually harmonise, usually work quite well together. The fire is the element of creativity, impulse, action. It can be fierce and destructive sometimes. That's the fire element. The earth element is more grounded. This is the security conscious people amongst us, Taurus, Capricorn, Virgo. The earthy element indicates that very thing, that if you're born under that particular star sign, you are seeking that security. And of course, in the context of relationships, what I'm saying is that the seeking of that security will most often be expressed through the nature of the people that we draw ourselves to or we hope to attract to us to fulfill that basic elemental drive. The air signs represent the intellectual quality. So you know that Gemini is very, very heady. They call many Geminis airheads. It is an air sign, and just like air, it's movable. More movable in the sign of Libra, which is a movable sign, a movable air sign, and Aquarius, which is the fixed air sign. So these three star signs obviously seek relationships that are going to satisfy their intellectual curiosity. They want to be challenged intellectually, socially. So these are the star signs that will most naturally gravitate towards each other. Then we have the element of water, the sensitive emotional element, which is represented by the signs of Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces. And this particular trine is a very spiritual trine. So there's several different levels at which we can look at these elements. On the most superficial level, the water signs represent the emotional component, that nurturing and neediness. But on the higher levels, what we see there in, for example, Scorpio and Pisces, then the emotions becoming more refined. And people born under this particular element, especially in Scorpio, the evolved scorpions, the phoenixes rising up from the ashes, and the Pisceans, which is the last sign of the evolutionary zodiac, are seeking spiritual partners. These are really what we would consider the soulmates. Although we don't preclude the other signs from having soulmates. All I'm saying is that in the true sense of spirit and soul, the water signs are probably best able to access those components of their evolutionary need and the relationships that they're going to have with other people. So the elements are the first component in what we look at. And again, I keep saying, and this is the problem with most astrologers, where they basically lump all of this in as a law. Of course, human beings are unique individuals, and you have to trust your own intuition, your instincts. You can't pigeonhole everyone into these 12 categories. In Hindu astrology, we actually have 27 lunar mansions, and then they are broken down into 4 additional segments. So we have 108, technically 108 different temperamental types, and that shows you just how sophisticated this system was, especially in the ancient Vedic tradition of astrology. For the purpose of this video, and that's the mistake a lot of astrologers make, is that they're not that conversant with the deeper aspects, so they throw this at you and say, well, if he's not the same element, then it's not going to work out, or if he's not this star sign or that, it's a disaster. And I don't say that, which is why it's so difficult when people email me and ask me, oh, am I going to get on with this guy? No, it's not that simple. We need to look at all the planetary energies in the horoscope. Venus, Mars, the lunar position particularly, and that stands out particularly in the Vedic system of astrology, where the lunar position of both parties, the male and the female, are looked at very, very carefully. And there's a whole lot of rules and regulations there for determining the magnetic quality between the man and the woman, the sexual compatibility. And they even get down into the area of genitalia, how compatible the genital organs are. Makes sense. Emotional compatibility, felicity, loyalty. Sometimes when 2 people come together, they can be very, very compatible on an emotional level. But it's a fact that these 2 energies blending may cause financial struggles, may cause ill health in one or the other. That's if these electromagnetic energies aren't completely compatible. And then, of course, the aura of 2 people is very much like what I describe as a pot that's been used to cook garlic in. You can wash that out, but the aroma of garlic is going to be retained. So also with the human aura, the experiences that we have, the people that we've previously been with, indelibly imprint their quality on your aura. So it's important that you understand this when 2 people come together. You are mixing the whole of your past karma with each other, and that's why the first thing I said to you in this session was that you shouldn't rush in to the relationships. You need to smell the fragrance of the person's aura first. I hope he's wearing, underarm deodorant as well. But generally, what I'm talking about here is have a feel for the energies of that person. Don't be afraid to ask questions. These are all important tips, general tips, before and while we look at the quality of the horoscopes. It's just ridiculous to think that looking at a horoscope is all that's necessary. People forget, astrologers particularly, that the horoscope is not about the planets. The horoscope is simply a celestial representation of the energies of the person at the moment of birth or at the moment of an event. So we need to always bear in mind that when we look at a horoscope, when we look at all of these diverse energies that are taking place at the moment a person is born, they simply represent who you are. And that's the focus of an astrologer who is proficient at what he does. Often I can do readings and I rarely look at the chart. I mean, I'll make a reference here and there, but generally I like to be focused on the person, and especially in this arena of relationships. It is not an easy thing to do. For example, I've had in my collection of horoscopes maybe 3 or 4 sets of perfectly matched horoscopes. By that I mean there are usually around 13 points of agreement according to the Vedic astrology. And once we look at both charts overlaid, this is called sinistry, looking at where the girls' planets were at birth compared to where the boys' planets were at birth. It's like superimposing one horoscope over the other. Then we can look at the juxtaposition, the relationship between, for example, in the girls' horoscope, Venus, and the boys' horoscope, Venus. Girls' horoscope, Venus, boys' horoscope, Mars. These different pairs of planetary interactions give us a lot of information about the compatibility of people. And those other 13 points of agreement that I talked about yield certain number of points. There's a maximum of around 33 to 35 points. And if I multiply that by 3, then of course we're looking at a percentile. So we can get a percentage of compatibility. Now getting back to that first point, I've had 4 or 5 sets pairs of couples who have had almost near perfect scores. And interestingly, those relationships, for the most part, didn't work out. One that comes to mind, I can't mention names, is a high-powered Hollywood couple. And I remember doing both their readings at a session in Hollywood in 2009. And it was interesting. This is still while I'm doing research on a lot of this stuff. You know, I had to say to them, look, you guys have almost a perfect score according to the classical study of astrology. But I did point out there were some very big challenges. And of course the cycle of two people has to be synchronous as well. There's no point you being on the upper, that person being on the downer, you know. So again, there are plenty of other factors other than that simply perfect score. There was a great astrologer by the name of Professor B.V. Raman, and he was the leading light of Vedic astrology anyhow in the 20th century. And he was once asked this very same question about compatibility between couples. And he said, look, even if the horoscope does not match, the electromagnetic attraction of the two people can, in certain circumstances, neutralize and overcome those blemishes in the sinistry or the comparison of the charts. Above all, the intuition of an astrologer has to be able to sense, to pick, and to trust on that intuition that what is being seen. It's like a good doctor. He'll look at all of the symptoms, and that may say one thing, but a good doctor will use his intuition and gut feel and say, no, it's not that, it's something else. And I extend that to the profession of astrology too. And that is where I'd like to invite you to consider that relationships are a lifelong work in progress. Astrology can give some immense insights into that, but at some point you have to make the decision to trust in your own process and to leave if you're not happy, to accept where you are if you're not in a relationship, and then when that opportunity does arise, to carefully analyse and discriminately ascertain whether that person is going to be worthwhile, the investment that you put into that. Now, I've really enjoyed talking about this. I didn't actually prepare for this, but I think that while I've been talking about the elements, just recapping this, it's come to mind that obviously you're going to want to know, if you're a Taurus, whether you're going to get on with a Sagittarian. I go through all of those aspects in my book, but I would like to talk about that maybe later in the week. I'll put together a video just highlighting a few more of the points associated with this. And of course, I always welcome your feedback, and if you'd like to contact me, please visit my website. You can see it there, astrology.com.au. I'm Dadhichi, principal and founder of that website. And incidentally, we do have daily, monthly and yearly forecasts there, along with a lot of free psychic readings and a whole new smorgasbord of fantastic professional astrologers, psychics, clairvoyants, palmists, numerologists, dream interpreters, you name it, we've got it there. So if you're looking to get some sort of insight, and of course myself, please do visit us, and I look forward to talking to you next time. Bye for now.